Hey y'all, what's up? We're diving in today. We are starting the brand new Leadership for Students podcast. Today, I'm Blake Beveridge. I'm a senior here at Arlington. We're going to be starting off this brand new podcast where I'm going to be bringing on some leaders, some mentors of mine, some different people that are just really following after Christ and are leaders and what they're doing. So today, for the very first episode, we have none other than the one and only Christian Castellano.
How you doing, guys? My name is Christian. I'm actually a graduate from Arlington High School. I graduated in 2016 and had the opportunity of doing all 4 years of high school at Arlington High School. I loved it. I'm glad to be here with Blake. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
This will be a lot of fun. Now, before we get started, Christian, you want to tell us maybe about some of your little future plans a little
Yeah,
bit?
absolutely. So, as a graduate of Arlington High School, I always had a desire to do something more, to do something that would have an impact on the world. And so, in January 2022, I'm preparing to go overseas to a small little country called Peru, to be a part of a missions team that's going to be working with refugees from Venezuela. And I'll be there for the next 2 years. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really
Mm-hmm.
excited for it.
Well, we're excited to hear all the stories that you're going and get to see what God's going to get to do in your life. So let's just
Absolutely.
dive on in here and see it. So, Poppy, this first one's for you, but when you've been on this leadership kind of thing for a while and you're preparing for this trip, so who's been really pouring into you? And then not only who's been pouring into you, but how can I pour into someone that way?
Yeah, I think that's two questions. I think right off the bat, when I think about who's poured into me, there's a lot of different people. I think as a high schooler, and for me, even as a recent college graduate, you have to realize that your parents, in a sense, have some sort of influence on your life.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time it's good, some of it can be bad. So I'd always say, like, one, man, my parents, I've been blessed to have really good parents, and so they've poured into me and taught me how to lead well from a family standpoint. But professionally, I've had the opportunity of working with a couple of different people from around the country. A guy named Matt Mason, who
Yeah.
lives in San Antonio. He taught me a lot about what it meant to serve as a leader. Like, yes, be in charge of people, but serve in such a way that elevates people in a different way. And then the other person that I would say had a huge influence on my life was actually my grandfather. My
Mm-hmm.
grandfather, he was a pastor down in Honduras from the 50s all the way through the 90s, and he just loved the Lord. But he taught me how to be a brave leader.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is he always told me if you have trust in Jesus and you have trust in what he's done in your life, you can walk in confidence as he guides you in leadership. So I'd say those are two of the biggest leaders I've had in my
Mm-hmm.
life outside of my mom and dad. I think your second question, what was your second question again? Let's see.
How can I do that? How can I be a leader like your grandfather, a leader like your parents? How can I kind of pour into others in the same type of way?
Absolutely. I'd say, sir, um, as a high school student, sometimes you want the platform, sometimes you want to be in front of people, or you want even the glory of being the best athlete at the school. You think, how do I get the light on me? But I think the best way that you can begin serving now as a high school student and begin leading people as a high school student would be to serve. What do I mean by that? When I say serve, I mean find different ways to elevate people over yourself, which is so countercultural. In our culture, everything is how can I get mine? How can I get more from me? But I think Jesus models leadership in a different way. He says that we gotta lift others up, and so I'd say that'd be the best way for you and other high school students would be to start leading that way.
You just nailed that next question, so maybe dive into it a little bit more.
Absolutely.
What should I be doing as a high school student right now to lead others and to prepare myself to lead for others? Because like right now, especially in high school, we're preparing for college, preparing for our future careers. So what are some ways that we can be preparing for it? I mean, you're going over Peru right now. What's kind
Yeah.
of been your steps to prepare for
Yeah. To prepare for leading others, I think peers. I think would be the best way of putting it.
it?
How do you lead peers, and how do you kind of prepare yourself now? I'd say one of the biggest things to start doing now, like I said earlier, is serve. But I think the other practical way of doing that is writing notes. Like
Mm-hmm.
it sounds so simple, almost elementary, but when you begin writing notes to other people, words of encouragement to other people, you begin taking the eyes off of you. You begin taking the focus off of yourself. You put on other people. You find the good in everybody else and elevate them. You encourage them. You say, hey, like I care about you, and I want to tell you that. But also, I'd say this as a leader in 2021, going to 2022, the reality is our world looks pretty different,
Yeah.
even than when I was in high school. And so, as a leader, what I would say is the best way to lead is to cling on to what you know to be true.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as you're talking to people in your grade and those beneath you, like younger than you, I'd say yes, encouragement, be kind, be loving, but also speak truth when it's necessary. Like when you look at it and you say, hey, this is an injustice, or hey, this is wrong. speak truth into it. Take the moment and own the moment and speak honestly about it.
That's right. Never back down from anything that's when you know there are lies coming in, you never want to back down from. You know when those fiery darts, you want to put up your shield and come back
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially in our culture, like the importance of that is like if you have the shield of faith, which is the Bible. Like if you know that to be true, then cling on to it and live with it.
That's right on. So, what kind of, especially you're preparing, you're getting ready, you're trying, you got these 4 months. So, what are some habits that you do to help continue to push yourself to be a better leader each and every day?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say one of the biggest habits I've started to do in the past year is I'm not the best reader. Honestly, I despise reading. I don't want to say I hate reading, but what I try to do is outside of reading God's word, I think God's word is a foundational part of everyone's life. But I try to get up every morning and I read the Bible. But on top of that, I try to spend about 10, 15 minutes reading some sort of book, whether it's leadership or even if it's a goofy novel. I try to spend some time reading just to sharpen my brain
Mm-hmm.
and prepare myself. The other thing I would say when it comes to preparing myself to go somewhere new and it comes to preparing myself for the future is I try to have a schedule for how I do my life. Example. So my new goal, and I've done it before. I was trying to get up at 6:30, but my new goal now is to go to bed or is to wake up at 6 and be in bed by 10:30 every
Mm-hmm.
night. That way, I get enough rest, but on top of that, I get the opportunity to get up early before other people do, so I can really focus in on things I need to do.
Get that good start to your day and start it off
Absolutely,
right.
yeah.
Um, you're outside of, you graduated what year?
2016,
You
Austin High
graduated
School.
2016. You're a graduate now. You kind of moved on from that stage of life. So, kind of looking back at your old high school stuff, what would you tell yourself to help him be a better leader in those days and what's to come?
Yeah, absolutely. If I could go back and tell 16, 17-year-old Christian about how to best lead and how to be in that moment, I would say, man, be fully present in the moment. Um, there's a part of me that always had a desire for what was next. It was always, what's next? Where am I going? Where am I going to school? Where am I going to go to college one day? What's going on tomorrow? And I think a lot of times Jesus tells us, he's like, don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow takes care of itself. Like, I would look back and look at 16, 17-year-old me and say, hey, like, dude, just chill. Enjoy the moment. Like, enjoy being in high school. Enjoy being there. Like, God's placed you here for a purpose. And if
Mm-hmm.
you're here for a purpose, then fulfill it and be the best you that you can be in a way that glorifies Jesus. And so that's one thing I'd say. The other thing I'd tell 16, 17-year-old me about leadership, the first part was be all in, and just be present in the moment. The second thing, I would say is stop and allow yourself to think and journal a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I journaled some as a high school student, and when I say journal, I mean spend some time, just like 5, 10 minutes a day, kind of reflecting on thoughts of the day or like what happened that day. Like I would look back and say, take some time to write down what's going on, and process it because it's good to learn how to process feelings, emotions, thoughts. Like feelings aren't great leaders, but they're a great marker for how you're feeling that day and what you're doing. So I would
Mm-hmm.
say, take that time to really reflect and really look back on the day. Don't just live a day and forget about it.
Yeah, that's right on. That's what I was talking to somebody just the other day, and we were like talking about how like you and some other leaders are kind of starting to leave the church, and they're going off and they're going to where the Lord's leading them, and we were both of us were just like, be grateful for the times that you had, because like you always want to be able to look back and like whether it's with you or maybe I was in school or whatever I was doing, I always want to be able to look back and said I enjoyed the time I had with them,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I never took them for granted. I
Hmm.
always made sure I was purposeful with them and always having fun and hanging out.
Absolutely.
So going into this last little question of the night, um, what kind of leader do you have any kind of leader that you try to model yourself afterwards, and how do you try to do that in your walk?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'd say there's about two or three different leaders that I really look up to and really admire. One of them, when I look at great leadership styles, I look at great influence. There's a guy I go back to, his name's Matt Mason. Um, and he was somebody that had a huge influence in my life. And when I look at his leadership style, like he was really great at developing a team. He was really great at bringing different types of people around him that had different skill sets and was never insecure about, oh, I'm not as good as them in this area, in this area. He said, hey, I know my weaknesses, I know my strengths, and I can build people around me to make my team look good. And so that was one thing I loved about him. The other thing that I really admired about him is that he was really good at feeling the moment. He knew the right word to say, when to say it. He knew how to have compassion when we needed it, but he also knew how to be strong and be firm. And there's a good balance for us as high school students, but also for me as a recent college graduate, like knowing the balance of being a tactful leader. And when I say tactful, it means knowing how to use the right word at the right time. And I think Matt really modeled that really, really well. So I'd say that's one leader. And then when I go back to it, not to be cheesy, but I think to be honest and real, like one of the best, or if not one of, I mean, the best leader of all time is Jesus. And we say that, I'm not saying it just because I want to talk about Jesus and talk about the Bible, but I say that because when you look at Jesus' life, the way he led people had a lasting impact that changed the world. I mean, 2,000 years later, we still talk about this guy named Jesus because I believe he's the Lord, but I think the other part of it is he was such a great leader. He poured into 12, and those 12 poured into many others who would then impact the whole world. Like the whole world is shifted because of a leader named Jesus Christ. And so I say when we look at Jesus, his best leadership attributes were he was a servant leader, he was a loving leader, he was a sacrificial leader. And so I think for us, it's cool to look at people like that.
Yeah, Jesus is really just a perfect example of what a leader is, because like even if you don't take in the religious aspect of him,
Mm-hmm.
who like he's the son of God and all that, just looking at how he led people and how he inspired others to lead other people and continue it on for ages now,
Mm-hmm.
that the gospel message is spread. It's truly a remarkable thing that we've had a leader like that and someone to be able to look at and get to read about
Mm-hmm.
and get to see how to model ourselves like that.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's it for this little podcast. If you really liked it or enjoyed it, leave us a like, leave us a comment. If y'all really want me to do this again, just reach out to me and maybe we can see if we can make this a monthly thing, maybe even a weekly thing. All right.
That'd be a lot of fun.
That would be a lot of fun. Maybe we can get you back out here some week.
Absolutely.
But that is all. Christian, thank you for coming out here.
Thanks, Blake.
And that is it for the Leadership for Student podcast.